How are you? Welcome to the webinar. Be the one in the eyes of your audience. I should share my presentation with you. I want you to imagine to be the one in the eyes of your audience, whoever you're serving. So I want to first of all acknowledge you. Oh, Katya, hello, welcome to the call. So we've got a little bit of an international audience here already. We've got Mary, who is from the United States, my beloved America. We've got Joe from England, Andrew from England, and Katya. She is Greek, but she's currently in Libya. So anyways, so good to have you here, guys, today. And I promise that this will be an hour well spent worth for you. So the topic is be the one in the eyes of your audience. And I want to acknowledge you, first of all, for being here because you have the courage that most people lack to look at yourself more honestly. Because if you have come across my world, my work before, and this will be relevant to those who will listen to the recording, you know that I don't do shallow. I don't like the sparkly, shallow stuff. I go deep. I am driven by meaning and substance. And this is why you are here. Because the world doesn't need average, mediocre, and superficial, shallow stuff. The world is looking for something magnificent, something amazing. We've got Jamlik. Welcome to the call. So good to see you. Another country joining from Africa.
Thank
It's
you.
been a long time since I've seen you. So welcome.
Thank you.
So most of you know me, you have come across my world, but if you don't know, I help entrepreneurs find their message and the story and the voice that is entirely their own. And their unique message, their genuine message is usually rooted in their story and their voice. So the whole purpose is to stop being invisible and start creating the kind of impact and income that you know you're capable of. That's my goal for you. And I hope that today will be the starting point of like before and after journey for you because things can change quickly, really quickly. Now, this workshop is not just about tools, tactics, or even strategies. Because how many times have you tried something in the past? Perhaps you even paid money for it and you have implemented the steps to the letter, but they didn't work. Even the strategies, the most proven strategies didn't work. Because at one point or another, they failed to address the core problem so that the whole puzzle would finally fit. And this is what I'm here to help you achieve. So I'm going to make an assumption, and since I know most of you, I think it's pretty accurate for you. You are talented, you are committed, and if you're like me, you despise aggressive and unethical advertising and selling, but you care for people and you want to make a difference. You are ambitious and determined, but you want to do things that are aligned with your values, that feel right. Because there are so many people out there who sell really rubbish, but wrapped in a nice paper, in a nice wrapping. And a lot of people, they think they are buying chocolate chip cookies, but they're actually getting dog treats. And that's not who you are. You want to create meaning, transformation with the work that you do. But there is one little problem there. There is something missing. What is that? What is that problem that with all the talent and commitment and hard work and your care for people, there is a problem? What is that problem? In the context of what I do, I know that there are three problems that people who come for my help, there are three problems. So the first one is I'm shouting into the void. Okay, I do all the right stuff, I show up, I do the work, but actually nobody really wants it. Nobody really cares for it. What am I doing wrong? And I'm speaking from experience because that has been me for quite some time. Now, the second part of the problem is they feel like they have a beautiful message, but when they express it, it falls flat, or they are not able to express it in a powerful way that will land and will connect and inspire people. And the third part of the problem is they're not quite sure what exactly their message is, what and how to express it. So there are lots of question marks because they have tried different things and they keep reinventing. They're like, this doesn't work and this doesn't stick, and what do I do with this? And it's a little bit, it creates that confusion and doubt. But whatever the problem is, now put it in the chat if you can, or unmute yourself and say if any of this resonates with you, if any of this is true for you. Mary, thank you. Yeah, okay, good. I know that Andra has had that in the past as well. She couldn't really find the clarity. Okay, Katya, thank you. Thank you, Jamlik. Yes, okay, so the problem is there, but the problem is, and how it shows up, that it is a person at this level is actually stuck. Yes, thank you, Andra. Okay, brilliant. And stuck really stinks. It doesn't matter where you're at, which point you are stuck at, whether it's 0 or 100K or even a million. I'm talking in terms of money and income because it's an example that is relatable to a lot of people. And I speak to a lot of business owners in our business with Christian, and stuck stinks. Even if you're stuck at 7 figure, it's not a nice place to be. Now, how do you break through? How do you get unstuck from that problem and find the solution? In order to get unstuck, you first need to understand the nature of being stuck. And there are two types of being stuck. The first one is what I call the acceptance. It's living uninspired life outside of your potential, beneath what's possible. And people at this level, they settle. They accept what is. Oh, life is tough. Just deal with it. Be grateful for what you've got. And perhaps they know there is more, but they don't do anything about it. And it's not a nice place to be. They accept and settle for mediocrity. The second type of being stuck is frustration. And it's a bit more tricky, it's a bit more insidious because people at this level, they have done the work. They have read the books, attended seminars, and gone on the personal growth journey. But there is something missing that keeps them stuck. Perhaps they haven't really internalized those ideas about unlimited potential, or they haven't lived into them, even though they can talk about it and they can articulate it beautifully. But how it shows up at that big problem that I talked about earlier, the expression, speaking into the void and not really knowing what it is that you do and how to express it with clarity, power, and essence, is because at one level or another, they are buying into someone else's story. They are borrowing someone else's voice. They are borrowing someone else's framework, and they are copying unconsciously someone else's path because they haven't fully accepted their true genius essence. And it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel authentic. It doesn't feel aligned. And that's why there is no connection with those opportunities that they desperately want to have in their life. And the world really is a mirror. It reflects back to you what you project onto it. So the world cannot connect with us if we are not connected with ourselves. It's So simple and yet complicated for a lot of people to get. Because if you're not connected with yourself, with your inner brilliance, with your message, how can you get fully behind it? How can you express it? How can you find the right words to articulate it in a way that will land on the right people and will make you magnetic to the opportunities that you want in your life? So, how do you get out of that? The root cause of this problem, because I told you in the beginning that we're going to address the root cause of the problem, is understanding that there are two stories that are playing within us and which story to listen to. First of all, let's look at it this way. Each of us lives two lives within us. The first life is the reality life, what I call the reality life. The reality is the life we experience every day, the life that leaves room for longing, for desire, that nagging feeling that we could be, do, and have more. And that's not a very inspired life because there is that feeling that there could be more. And there is also the life that lives in our dreams. It's what we could be. It's warm, colorful, and eclectic, but it's hidden behind the mist of doubt and self-questions. Who am I to create that life of dreams? I don't have what it takes. Can I really do it? I don't have the resources. I'm not good enough. And trust me, I'm speaking from experience. And most people, they live in the gap here. They're frustrated because they know there is more, but they can't get to it. And despite their efforts that they take action, lots of action, they are trying to push through strategy, with hustle, with willpower. And they end up taking one step forward and a few steps backwards. Because there is no alignment, something is missing. What is missing? Actually, there is an easy bridge from the life we get to live on a daily basis and our dream life. And that bridge is the empowered story of who we are. That's as simple as that, but I want you to grasp the magnitude and the gravity behind this statement. The empowered story of who we are. Inside every one of us, there are two stories running simultaneously. Some people have learned to manage their negative story better than the rest people, and that's why they're more successful. But I call these two stories the poverty story, and I'll explain why in a second because it's part of my journey, and the power story. The poverty story sounds like I'm not good enough, or whatever your version is. For me, that was I'm not good enough. Who am I to do this? Someone is already doing it better. I'm too young. I'm too old. I'm too academic or too inexperienced, too street smart. And it's phenomenal how many stories, those negative stories, they are pretty much nonsense stories, but people believe in them. Or people can say at this level, my story isn't interesting enough, my message is not that strong, it's not that compelling. I don't have that rags to riches kind of story. Who am I to inspire people? And that poverty story is what creates that invisible wall. And it pulls us back every time we build the momentum. As I said, you take one step forward and a few steps back. Not because you're weak and not because the universe is against you or not because the universe is playing favorites. It favors some and dishonors others. That's not the case. It actually works by precise laws. But the story we tell ourselves about who we are is what holds us back because it prevents us from taking the right action. Now, the power story, this is the whole point, and your direction in life could change overnight within a moment when you choose to step into your power story. It's not the slogan that you borrowed from a motivational speaker. It's not the affirmation that you repeat in the mirror. It's the ownership of your inherent power. It goes deep. And I can't tell you this. You can't just write this down because you can comprehend it intellectually, but if you haven't embraced it with your internal being, with your internal essence, you're not going to get, it's not going to be your shield. It's not going to be your fortress that you can rely on. That power of your message, of your story that was forged within you through everything you have lived. And when you find that story, when you find that part, when you recognize it and embrace it, you learn to express it in your own unique voice. And you don't just stand out, you become recognizable, you become undeniable. No one can deny you if you can't deny yourself. Think about it. So the gap between the life you are living and the unlived life within you is bridged not by force, but by story. The story you tell yourself on a daily basis. I love the quote by Jean-Paul Sartre who said, "A person is not the sum of what they already have, but rather the sum of what they do not yet have, of what they could have." So that gap is bridged by your story. Now, why do I get to talk about that? Let me share a little bit of my story with you. Most of you know my story, but I think it's the message behind it would be relevant for you. So most of you know that when I was a little girl growing up in poverty in Ukraine, we were poor and we knew we were poor and genuinely poor. No toilet, no bathroom inside the house, no money. And I was mocked and humiliated for who I was, for our poverty, how we lived. It was tough growing up in those conditions. So that was my reality, the life I got to experience on a daily basis, what I saw around me. But it never felt real to me. Even as a child, I felt something. Perhaps it was a presence, an invitation. It was mysterious, exciting, and quite warm. That sensation, it was the intuitive feeling that the world was much bigger and better place. The world is small and large at the same time, isn't it? I couldn't name it back then. You have to understand that I didn't have the language for what was happening. It was all transpiring at the level of energy, at the level of feelings. And I chose to step into that world of dream rather than just accept the world of circumstances or what I saw around me. It wasn't decided to not to have the circumstance as the final word of my life, of my destiny. So when I was 12 years old, most of you know how the story goes, but I'm going to say it. I told my mom, I said, "Mom, when I grow up, I'm going to live in America." And she thought I had lost my mind. But that declaration, it wasn't a plan. I had no clue how I was going to make it happen. But it was the material expression of something that was brewing up inside me for quite some time. And it was the first visible sign of a new story that I was telling myself. A story of who I really was and what I was capable of. It was my first story of power. Now, again, I didn't have the language for it. It was all at an intuitive energy, feeling level. And then what transpired afterward, my transition from Ukraine to America, from poverty to comfort, from an illegal immigrant to a US citizen, from serving tables to serving the world, none of that happened primarily because of the sheer force, the hustle, the strategy, the courage, although all of those things were present. But it all happened as a result of the shift in my inner narrative, from the story of poverty to the story of power. Now, I don't mean that once you change that story, you can relax and just enjoy, have some Netflix time. No, you have to move, you have to show up. But there is a profound difference between taking action coming from the place of power and taking action coming from the place of fear. Because that desperate energy convolutes things. And even like assuming a lot of people say, I just want to create results. Yes, of course, we are all in the game for results, but imagine two scenarios. If you come from the place of fear and you assuming that the result is the same, okay, so it's not the result that you want. You get a learning lesson, yeah? So if you come from the place of fear and you don't get what you expect, you get paralyzed. You get like a deer in the headlight, and you start entertaining that poverty story. See, I told you, you're not that good enough. You can't do it. Who do you think you are? Don't be an ego person. This is not for you. And you go back. But if you're coming from the place of power, that's a completely different narrative. You say, okay, this didn't work. It's fine. I will carry on. I will show up and I will do better. What is the learning in it? And you can say, you can ask yourself, there was one person in my previous groups who was saying, isn't that interesting that I tried this and it didn't work? What does that reveal to me? And you open up the possibility for you. So it's very important to get connected to your power of story. And when you do, your world transforms just like it did for me. I started speaking. For me, it was the idea of speaking. So I was sharing my story, my message in different audiences in the United States of America. I started speaking in 2015. 2015, so a bit more than 10 years ago. But 2016, it was the real transformational year when I really got behind my power, if you will. But this is not about me. I'm just showing you, like, this is the part where I'm supposed to build the credibility and that I know what I'm talking about. And I have distilled my methodology and my stories and that message of power in two of my books that I wrote and published. Most of you have got those books and read and hopefully got inspired by them. Create the life you dream about, and then your story is your power, where I help people extract, embrace, and get fully behind their genius message. But what does that look like for you? Let's unpack it. Your genius message, because that's what's going to put you in the league of your own. That's what's going to make you unrecognizable. And it usually, your genius message is the intersection between your story, or what I call your high story, your history, your personal power, that lesson, that essence, what you have learned, your insight, the character that was forged as a result of what you have lived. And that's the message only you can share. And it's going to be so inspirational because it's your lived truth. And at the end of the day, even though you might share a different story with your different circumstances, we are all communicating one universal story of what it means to be human, regardless of the industry you are in, regardless of the service or the product you sell. We all love stories because they teach us of what it means to be human. And then the sticky part for a lot of people is how you express both. How you express, communicate your story, how you express that insightful, unique, genius message. And that's where most people think they need help with. Okay, but it's the visible part, and I get that. So people come to me and or I see they struggle with, okay, show me the tools. Just show me how to express my message, and I give me the structure, how to create the hook, the arc, the conflict, and the becoming and the resolution. And all of that is important. Knowing how to tell your story compellingly really matters. And I can give you lots of frameworks. How to create a beginning, how it was, what happened, and the reward, the result, and how it relates to the audience. But that's not where the journey begins, because if you imagine the analogy of an iceberg, it's the visible part, yeah, but it's still a bit shallow. It's only 10% of what happens with the entire structure. Okay, the majesty, the 90%, is below the water. It's unseen, but that's where the majesty is. You have to go deep. You don't start with just the tools and or even the strategies that the whole market is selling this promise, and people buy into that because at an intellectual level it makes sense. Yes, I just need the tools. Just show me the tools. But it doesn't work, because what ends up happening is that you are trying to build the house by starting with the roof in the air. You don't have the foundation, you don't have the walls. So that house will not withstand the storms and the inevitable challenges. So if you go deep, this is where the fun part happens. You start to understand the power behind your history, behind your high story. What's the significance of it? How is it relevant to my audience? And you start playing with it. But it's like the transitional level. You get to own your power, your story. But then there is the deeper, even deeper layer behind it, is the genius in your story, extracting the genius and positioning it, expressing it with power that makes sense to your audience. So they become so enticed, they become compelled to want to learn more because they connect with your message, they connect with you. There is something that you've shared that reminds them of who they are, that connects them with you, not just at a mind level, at an intellectual level, but at a heart and soul level. And this is the work that I do, the genius that is only available to you through your story, through your power. So it's the transformational level, the true power of your story, not the performance, the power, the knowing, and it becomes your biggest weapon. It's something that protects you and pushes you forward and makes you magnetic, truly magnetic on the marketplace, to the opportunities. You start showing up in a completely different way. Now, here is another model that I would like to share with you, because I think it's important and it will give you a little bit more context into what I'm saying here. So many people say to me that I'm not quite sure, I'm not quite clarity problem, not quite clear on what it is that I need to do and how to position my content or my offer, and I need to find that thing, I need to clarify it. And it's a valid problem, it's there, yeah? The second aspect is I'm not quite sure that the market wants it. There is a little bit of that inner doubt and that lack of confidence. They can't get fully behind their offer because they're not really certain in that message. And the third aspect, the third symptom of the problem is, well, I'm not quite sure how to express my voice, my unique voice. I see the importance and the transformational power of it, but I'm not quite sure how to express it. Now, all of those things are valid, and they can present a problem. If you're not clear, if you're not certain, if you can't express your voice, you're not going to create a breakthrough, right? But even if you address the clarity, certainty, and voice problem, and you take action, you apply some strategy, and a lot of people have, I see it all the time, but at one point or another, they hit this plateau because they were addressing the symptoms. And no matter how much you put a lipstick on a pig, it's not gonna create a princess out of a pig. No offense to pigs, they're beautiful animals and they have their perfect place in our ecosystem. But you get the metaphor. So you don't start with clarity, you don't start with certainty, you don't start with voice because it will be an external work. You have to go a little bit deeper, addressing the root cause of the problem. And the root cause of the problem is who you really are. Are you the one in your own eyes? Do you see yourself as the one, as a go-to expert, as a person who can help people, who can spread the message of power in the context of what you do? Do you see yourself as such? Do you have that inner anchor, as I call it? Because once you address that, and this is where this power story comes into play. No matter what happens on the outside, you know where your anchor is. You know who you are because you are the one. You get fully behind what's happening. And all these symptoms, external symptoms of clarity and certainty and voice, they just vanish because they don't they don't present a problem. They don't get hold, they don't have, you know exactly who you are, what you're here to do. You have the certainty, the absolute inner certainty that no matter what happens, you become unstoppable, you become a force to be reckoned with. And your voice becomes your absolute power. That's the work that needs to be done. You connecting with your own message, because if you're not connected with your message and going here, you understand the power of your story. And a lot of times people tell me when I reflect back that story, is that really my story? Is it really me? I didn't realize there was that power behind the story. And they might not use the word power, but they recognize the significance of it, because somehow we have been programmed to believe, forgive my misspelling, guys, I'm a foreigner, so we have been programmed to believe that no, don't stick out, don't raise your hand, just be like everybody else. And I'm not asking you to be an ego person, to step into that zone of arrogance. Hey, look at me, I'm a big shot. I despise those influencers. They don't have gravity. They are actually the ones that are struggling with certainty, because it's that external bravado that they put on that completely masks the inner wound. I'm talking about that powerful calm, because when you connect with your power story, you are able to connect with that powerful calm within you. And you look around, you see yourself, you see your offers, you see what you do and how you communicate, how you show up. You literally magnetize opportunities. And I'm speaking from experience in my own life and in the lives of clients that I have worked with. They like opportunities come out of nowhere because they show up in a different way. They speak, like your ability to speak. A lot of people say, okay, just help me. Here is my story. Help me make it interesting and compelling. And a lot of people use AI and ChatGPT and other language models, but it's not their truth. And they end up being struggling. So the work that I do is addressing that core essence of who you are. So you become the one in your own eyes. And when you have that absolute inner anchor within you, you get excited by the challenges. You get excited by overcoming those frustrations. And life doesn't have to be a challenge. It's just it's not what happens to us, it's how it makes us feel. So what I do is, and some of you have seen this model before, is I help people extract, first of all, you really have to be clear. It comes back to clarity, but clear on what makes you different. What parts of your story really differentiate you from masses? So you can truly own your story and you can articulate it beautifully in a way that connects with people. But it's not enough. A lot of people just share their story without linking it to the market need, to the value the market is looking for, is ready for, and is willing to buy. So you need to merge it. And I always say that there is your story here, yeah, and there is also the market and their market need, and you have to merge the two aspects together because that's the sweet spot. That's where you can monetize your genius. When you share your essence, your genius message, how you can help, but you share it in a way that not only makes sense to people, but connects with them at a soul level because they see the reflection of who they are in their story. I shared my story of poverty and power in front of different audiences. And every time, I kid you not, even people from prosperous countries like America, Britain, New Zealand, Australia, South Africa, and European countries, they say they all experience the poverty story because even though my conditions are unique to me, to my story of the poverty in Ukraine, but I'm speaking at the level of what makes us all human. We all have those poverty stories. I just labeled it in my own way. But I share the same message as many other experts out there do. You have to define what it is for you so you can connect it with the want and the need of what the market is ready to buy, is buying, actively buying. And there is an audience out there for you that are looking to buy from you because of who you are. And then the reward. Okay, so the third aspect of the work I do, these three outcomes that I help people get clear on, it turns into a little bit like a sad face when I circle these things around. But let me put it a happy, smiley face. So the reward is what becomes possible when you express your story, your genius message with clarity and value. And what happens in the end here, you become the one. When you know exactly what makes you different, how to express that genius message only you can share. You can't, and some people can copy you because you will eventually, you will get exposure, you will create transformation and people will be copying you, but it won't do any service to them. We have people who are copying my work and Christian's work and it doesn't really serve them because it doesn't come from their legitimate lived experience, lived wisdom. You have to clarify it for yourself. It might not be the easy, shallow, superficial work, but it's so rewarding because the rewards you will be able to create will amaze you. And not just for your business, but for other people's. It's a value exchange. So in order for you to get that clarity, have that value, articulate that value, and create rewards for you to become magnetic to the opportunities and create rewards for your audience, for your clients, you need to first and foremost connect with your clients. But in order to connect with your clients or your audience, you have to be connected with yourself. So you become relevant. You transition from unknown to relevant. First of all, in your own eyes, it always comes back to you. It starts and it ends with you. You are the alpha and the omega. Once you connect with your audience, after connecting with yourself, you can inspire them. Oh, we all love that feeling of inspiration when we can shift from noise to impact. And inspiring storytellers are inspired themselves. After inspiration, when you inspire people, you can transform them in the context of what you do. So you can create that momentum for your own life and for the lives of others. So this is the magnitude, the work that I do. And there are also the three aspects around each model, but we're a little bit pressed for time. So I'm not going to go into too much of detail, but I would like to give you an offer out there. I don't know if it's going to be something that you want to take me up on that or not, but I would like to offer you my, this is not the end, by the way. I'm just going to share the link in the chat of my course, which is From Story to Profit. And if you're ready for more, you can reach out to me and so I can help you extract the genius message if you're ready for the coaching and helping. Because what I have found in my own experience and working with other clients is that you can't see the picture when you are the one in the frame. You can use ChatGPT, you can use the AI models, and most of the world really does use that. But extracting that soul essence, that inner power, is where the magic happens. Because then you can use all those AI tools to simplify, to streamline, to create the funnels, to create the offers and all of that. But if you don't have the input, you're going to end up trying to build a house by starting with the roof in the air. You need to have that, extract that substance and get fully behind it, or what makes you unique, what makes you transformational, so you can connect with that power story of yours, which is unique to you, because the world is looking for the original. It's looking for the true essence of who you really are. So you can either get that work done yourself by following the simple methodology, simple steps, where in that course I talk about how to nail your differentiation, how to extract that power story within you, how to connect with your genius, and how to merge it with what people want, to tap your audience desires and to articulate the impact that ethically sells you. Or you can send me a message how to find me, so we can talk about the one-to-one coaching or engagement of some sort. But I would like to also share with you, whether you decide to take me up on that offer or not, it's not really the point. What I want to talk a little bit about is the future. So your future, because whether we like it or not, we're going to end up there one way or another. So most people think that the distance between today and some point in our future is a straight line, let's say 12 months or 24 months. But actually, it's not true. It is a curve, and it accelerates the further down you go into the future. It can either go upwards or downwards, unfortunately. Because even if you think that I'm just going to carry on like I am, doing the things that I do, but unless you're growing, you can't stand still. There is no such thing as inertia in nature, in the universe. So you can either go downward to what I call, let's put it, being perpetually frustrated. I've seen a lot of people at that stage, and it's not a fun place to be. Hold on, you can't see it really. Let me adjust my screen. It's not a fun place to be. And people at this level, it's not that they are not talented or they are not good enough, that they stay stuck in that place of being frustrated, but they are not taking the right action. And the other line towards your future is the green line going upwards. And this is what I call being paid for who you are, for being you. Because that's the meaning of life. Whether you sign up with me or whether you work with me, it's irrelevant. But when you grasp that essence, that you have the right to be paid for who you are, because that's the value exchange. That's what life is about. You know, what we talked about here, that you get to create the reward when you clearly express your what makes you different, the value you bring to the market in a way that they want, they are looking for. So you don't talk about your thing, you meet them where they are. You learn to speak the language that they connect and resonate with. You create that reward, you create that value exchange. So you get to, this is what life is about, really. You get paid for who you are because it's a value exchange. And I want you to be on that line, that green line. But what is the difference between red and green line? The difference is the red line is drift and the green line is decision. You have to make a decision to step up on the green line. So the first decision you need to make is, am I willing to jump the line? Am I willing to get on the green line? That's the first decision. The second decision is, how long am I going to wait to jump the line? Because the truth of the matter is that people say, it all makes sense. I know I need to change. I know I need to make a move, but I'm just going to wait because right now is not the right time. It's not, they're waiting for the kids to grow up, or they're waiting for this to end, and the peace to be established in the Middle East, and the planets never align. But the truth of the matter is that the longer you wait, the bigger the gap gets between drift and decision, and it becomes more difficult, more costly, more challenging to jump the line. And people live life in quiet desperation. How much longer are you going to wait? Again, I'm not attached, although I would love to work with you, and I have with many of you, but I'm not attached to you making a decision or not, but I want you to decide for yourself. Are you willing to jump the line? When are you going to jump the line? And the third decision is, are you willing to stay on the green line? To take the right action to get to that place where you are being paid for being you. Because again, people don't fall off the green line. They behave off the green line because the old habits get hold and they're, oh no, this is too hard. I don't want to do this. Nah, I'm going to go back to safety, and being stuck sucks, but at least it's familiar, at least it's safe, and I'm okay. And they end up drifting and living life of frustration and being stuck, really. I don't want that for you. So I want you to make a decision. I want you to make the decision fast, and I want you to stay on the green line to get to that journey of being paid, of being you, for being you, to that place, because it's absolutely possible. It's who you are, what you are meant, why you were brought to this world. So whether you sign up for the program, it's £97, it's evergreen, or whether you would like to do the work with me on one-to-one with a coach. Yes, Mary, you can't do it without a coach. Yes, absolutely. You have to have a coach. You have to have someone who can hold the mirror in front of you, because it's very difficult to see the picture when you are the one in the frame. And it's also difficult to be alone in there because you start entertaining. And I'll be honest with you, I'm a human being, and Andra knows this. I can succumb to the story of poverty within me because it's part of me, it's part of my story. But I have learned to turn that story around, and I have learned to flip the switch from the story of poverty to the story of power. Now, I have help, I have mentors, I have people who pour into me, and it's important to have that because sometimes life can happen to you and you have to deal with it. Lots of things, we are all familiar with things that affect us personally. There's constantly wars going on, and they get to you. And when you're going the war in Ukraine, and what's happening now in Middle East, in Iran and everything, it gets to you. It affects you personally. And you can transfer that negative energy onto the message of your genius, and you're like, gosh, genius, who do you think you are, really? You don't have that. No, just forget about it. And it's difficult because you have to have that leadership, you have to have that power, that strength. So if I can be that person to you, I will be honored. But if not, please make sure you have the support. Make sure you don't settle for less, because you were created for more. And if you have that feeling that you could be more, that there is more to you, you have that essence, that's your voice of power. That's your story of power that is speaking to you loud and clear. And you have to listen to it.